ask you this? Which team so far would you say is playing the best of the remaining teams? Like Panthers, definitely not. It's Panthers.
It's Panthers, not even
Has
close.
to be.
Yeah,
Explain.
they're and you know what they're doing is they're doing it in all three zones, and they're living and dying by the way they play, and they play very aggressive in all three zones. And what that does when you play that aggressive and that man on man, and you play that style, you're going to give up opportunities, and that's literally why they lost game 3 in overtime, because they're too aggressive off of the faceoff, and that style they're not going to change. That's how they play. And they do not give you room. And you look at the New York Rangers on the power play, who have 5 unbelievable players that have played together since 2017, and they can't get an opportunity. They can't get a sniff. They can't get through the neutral zone clean. They can't get out of their zone clean. Florida is just that good right now. And one of the things they're not doing is they're not taking a lot of penalties, and they play that style. I'm really impressed with your team, though, with the Oil. And I can't believe I'm saying that, because coming into this series, I thought it was going to be Stars in a runaway. I really did, just because of the way that the Edmonton Oilers defend. But when you start looking at what they're doing now, they're not giving the Dallas Stars any room between the blue lines, like nothing. Like the Dallas Stars, and what Dallas needs to do next game, you saw it in the Jamie Benn goal, the first goal of the game, where he flips it over and they're able to elude some of that pressure through the blue lines. They got to start dumping and go and get the puck. And I don't know if they really just want to use their speed and their skill trying to get through the blue lines. And they got Rupe Hintz back, and buddy, you got to dump the puck because you're not getting through. And on the other side of the puck, the Oilers through the neutral zone are elite. They're the best team left in the playoffs right now, getting through the blue lines with speed. And it's Draisaitl and McDavid. Clearly that helps push the defense back. But they're getting through the neutral zone way too easy. And Dallas is going to have to solve it.
Do you feel that Dallas is more content to ice the puck than they have been in past series? Because I that's something that stood out to me. And I know like Panthers are a team that in the regular season didn't give a shit. They're like, well, just flip the puck down the ice. If we catch up to it, we catch up to it. Is Dallas, to you, trying to counter the difficulty they're having getting through the neutral zone by just saying, fuck, we'll just throw it down the ice and see what happens?
I think you're seeing that both from the Rangers and from Dallas. And it's because they can't elude the pressure of the two teams they're playing against. When you watch an Oilers shift and they can get you hemmed in your zone for 30 plus seconds, and most of that action is around the blue paint. And let's face it, again, we're going to have to talk about McDavid and Draisaitl. When they're on the ice, that action is in tight, and Hyman, like they're getting to the blue paint, and you get tired. Even if the Dallas Stars were able to get out of their zone, now they're too tired to play on the offensive side of the puck. So sometimes you just got to ice the puck and live another day and see if you can get through it. And that's the way I feel with the Rangers series too. It's icing after icing after icing, because they're just hemmed in and they can't get out. And I cannot believe the Dallas Stars, we hear a lot about their skilled defense, but and I don't know, they're just not getting the puck out of the zone clean anymore. And you look at the guys that are on the ice for their goals against. It's Tanev on the first one, it's Heiskanen on the second one. And I know it's everybody's saying, well, Tanev's in a boot. Yeah, well, Tanev gave up 2 goals in game 2 that were horrific. Like, cool your jets, Turbo. Like, their good D have to be better D, and they're just not right now.
Do you think they stand a chance if Tanev is a shell of himself or absent from the lineup? Like, their defense is significantly less imposing without him in the lineup, regardless of whether or not he's been as good as possible.
Suter stinks. Petrovic stinks.
Suter's so bad.
Like,
And
they
Suter's
basically have 2 pairs and 5 defensemen right now as is. If Tanev's out, like, they're in really rough shape.
And I pick on Tanev, but you're right. He is the best of what they have, and he's got that grit. He's got a good stick. He can defend the blue paint. But Suter, no. Just
He was cooked last year.
Buddy, he was awful last year in the Western Finals, like literally awful. And McDavid, if you're McDavid on the bench and you see number 20 on the ice in green, do you not think you're pulling your groin, getting over the boards? Like, get me out there. Like, get me. I want to get out there against number 20. Like, he's rotten. It's time. Beat it. Like, you got bought out once. Do it again. Like, please. Yeah, I think they're in trouble. And I cannot believe I'm saying this, because I really like Dallas. Edmonton has done something I didn't think they could do, and that's defend. And their ability to stop the speed of the Stars through the neutral zone has been impressive. I do believe this, and I know DJ's not going to like this. Skinner, he can't give up those goals. Like that first goal of the game, and we said this, I was almost texted you after 2, and I decided not to rub it in. But after it was 2-0 Stars, I go, uh-oh, no overtime show again tonight. And I was right, but for the wrong reason. He buckles it down. And once he gets that confidence, he just needs to get one big save, and then all of a sudden, okay, Skinner's okay. but he needs to get that first one. And he didn't get that early in the first period. And they had a chance. Stars had a chance. Sagan had a chance. And Hintz had the breakaway. Like, Stars could have made that 3-0, and I think this one's over. But he didn't. He buckles it down, and then he tightens up.
I know Pete has a question, but that is completely correct. He does need to make one save, and Pete pointed out yesterday, he's allowed a lot of goals on the first shot of the game.
10 times
which
this season.
He said that to me as if it was going to surprise me, and I was like, oh, I totally believe that, because you are right. He does need to make one early save. Fortunately, he's played for the Oilers all season, so he's had the opportunity to make a big save early in the game, because they'll typically trade chances, and he'll make a big save, whether it was on Dadonov in game 1 or whatever. Like, he does get anything under his belt, and then he's like, okay, I'm fine. And we typically do know in the first 10 minutes of the game whether they have good stew or they have bad stew. Game 2, I was jokingly about to text Pete and Sean 5 minutes into the game, Stu locked in, ? Because he hadn't faced a shot yet, and then he allowed a goal on the first shot of the game. So, like, we're not making that up when we say, like, that is for real. He does need to make a save to get him in, and then once he's in, he's typically pretty good. I don't have the most confidence in him, though, just because there is the other side of that.
But you guys were talking about good goaltending before I came on, and who is the guy? Like, right now, it's, to me, that it's Shesterkin. Like, Shesterkin's been outstanding, but they're on the verge of being out of this series. So then what? And Bobrovsky's been good, Ottinger's been good, and Stu Skinner's been good. I mean, there's nobody. I don't think you can say. I mean, Stu Skinner's probably led in some of the goals he probably shouldn't, but as a whole body of work, I think those three have played fairly even. So once you get, if Shesterkin's out, honestly, I think those three are pretty up for grabs and even for who's been the next best goalie in this conference final.
Can you explain to me the difference between Game 3 and Game 4 of the Edmonton and Dallas series, where in Game 3, Dallas was able to set up in the zone and have sustained pressure, and they were really good down low and on the walls. And then in Game 4, almost every possession for Dallas was like one and done and going the other way. So, like, what happened, and how do they fix that?
You know, it's part of it too isn't just system play. Part of it is, and I think the Edmonton Oilers defense moved the puck much quicker in the last game, and I think they had much more success in getting puck retrievals to get those pucks out of the zone. But for Dallas, I don't know if it's shot selection or if they need to get more shots to the net. They haven't been able to find the net in Game 4. I would see them, honestly, in Game 5, if I'm the Dallas Stars, it's everything's going back to the point. We're going to get shots on net, and we're going to converge at the goal. And that's one of the things, like, you look at Joe Pavelski and Robertson, that's how they have their most offensive success, is when they can get pucks to and around the net. Edmonton was impressive. And, you know, one of the guys that made a big difference in Game 4, and people might not want to hear it, is Corey Perry. And Corey Perry's a guy, he's not a speedster anymore, let's face it. But what Corey Perry does, he plays in the right spot. You go back and watch him in the defensive zone. He's between the hash marks. They can't get to the inside. He's got a great stick, and he's a really, really smart player. He's a pain in the ass, but in the defensive zone, he's smart. And I think when you put him on the ice and you put him out there with Draisaitl, now they're not giving up any opportunities on that line. It's hard to hem McDavid in. It just is. So now you got the top two lines, and you're not giving up those opportunities because you're defending much better. I thought the sticks for the Edmonton Oilers in their defensive zone were phenomenal. And when we're talking about their sticks, they're just blocking shooting lanes, they're blocking passing lanes. Again, I cannot believe I'm saying this to DJ. That team looked actually really, really good.
No, I'm surprised by it too. I picked the Oilers to win the series, but I said I expected the Stars to win the series because, well, we're not dummies. We've seen what the Stars have been all season. They're deep and they're structured, and they've got a great steady Eddie coach. On the other side of it, we're now seeing, like, depth has won out in favor of the Oilers, which is the biggest surprise to me. It doesn't tell all, but the fact that the Oilers have gotten more goal scorers through 4 games stuns me. I would have expected that depth would be working out in favor of the Stars. Instead,
that could flip on the drop of a hat, though.
Well, when? I mean, we're still waiting for Pavelski. We're waiting for Duchesne. You just said before you don't think either of those things are happening.
Stankoven.
I'm not confident. Stankoven, I think, has 1 point in the series, so there's more guys that can get going there. But last game, you saw Knobloch and Holland react to their pieces not fitting the way they wanted. They made drastic changes. We haven't seen huge changes from DeBoer. Does he do that going home now for Game 5?
I don't think so. It's just a matter of you've got to get your big players to be big players. And for the Dallas Stars, they just haven't been. And Joe Pavelski right now has been a huge disappointment in this series. Duchene's a guy that is going to have that secondary scoring and using his speed. He's not finding any room. Pavelski just isn't getting the puck, and he can't. He looks slow in this series, and that's surprising to me with Joe
You're being very
Pavelski.
generous by saying this series, by the way.
I was going to say,
Yeah, I know.
And also, why is it surprising to you?
I really like Joe Pavelski. I thought he was one of the keys to the Western Conference last year. I think he's one of the biggest reasons Dallas was where they were a year ago. And this year he's really dropped off. I don't know. You see him changing in the lines from last year with Robertson and Hintz. And I think that he kept up with the speed of that line. He no longer can do that. So he's changing in the lineup. I don't know if Pete DeBoer can do much with the changing of the lineup. The other thing we haven't mentioned even yet is that the Edmonton Oilers are doing this with no power play goals. And this is the team that we thought that's how they're going to win the series. They're going to get power plays. Dallas is going to take stupid penalties. You got guys like Suter and Ben. They're going to take dumb penalties, and Edmonton's going to walk through. They don't have a power play goal yet. And that makes it even more impressive, because what happens when they start getting hot on the power play? This series could get ugly, and I can't believe I'm saying that for the other way, because you talked about the depth. It is those depth guys that are scoring. McDavid is leading the way, and he's playing much better. Every time he touches the puck, something could happen. Like he just has that. He's got the McDavid swagger back that I didn't think he had in the last series. He had it in glimpses, but right now when he's on the ice, man, he's fun and exciting. And now it's other guys though.
So
and like he hasn't really like taken over.
There hasn't been a 4-point McDavid game.
There hasn't been a McDavid game, and you're right. Like I thought last game was his best game of the series, but it wasn't like the McDavid show. It was just things were happening when he had the puck.
So can we ask then something that we discussed the last couple of days, which is last round against Vancouver, defensively, numbers wise, a comparable team to Dallas. We had so many questions about if McDavid was about to pass away, if he was injured, all these things that were going on. Why does he look so much better against Dallas than he did against Vancouver?
I don't know if against Vancouver he's trying to do everything by himself. And I think right now he's comfortable being the guy, like you just said. He's not getting this 4-point nights, but yet he walks away still the best player on the ice. And it's not just because he's providing offense. One of the things that happens when he's on the ice is you have the puck more. And when you have the puck more, you're tiring out the opposing defense. You're making that team unable to score because they're hemmed in their own zone. And I think, honestly, he's comfortable with that in this series. He just seems to, last round, didn't he? He seemed frustrated all the time. You showed his face and he was mad and he was angry and he was frustrated because he wasn't getting the points. Now he seems like, I'm okay with what I'm doing. This is okay. This is my role. I've got the puck, which is fine. And if we score, we score. If we don't, they didn't. And I think he's just become really confident and comfortable in just being Connor McDavid, and it's made a huge difference because he is good enough to defend. But one of the things with Connor McDavid, when he gets frustrated, he makes mistakes, just like everybody does. When you get frustrated, you make mistakes because you're trying to do too much, and I don't think he is. I think he's being himself, and I think that's made a huge difference in this series.
Are you good with the Oilers in Dallas?
I could go a million different directions. So
I do want to go where you want. I do want to talk about the Eastern Conference Final eventually.
Oh, yes.
Say again?
No, yeah, that's fun too.
Yeah, no, I guess the last bow I would put on it, and you mentioned the power play thing, like I'm not getting ahead of myself as an Oilers fan, but I do know that a lot of people are starting to now favor the Oilers in the series just because there's a shoe to drop still for them, and it's going to happen at some point. Who knows? Maybe they're down 3-0 in the game, though, by the time their power play gets going, but that is still something that can happen. The last thing I actually will ask on the Oilers is, how do you view the Darnell Nurse thing? Because it went from everybody noticing how poorly he was playing to, if you're saying that he's playing poorly, you don't know what you're talking about. Bieksa the other day was pushing back big on that, saying he went back and watched all the Oilers' goals against, and none of them are Darnell Nurse's fault. I mean, Darnell Nurse has literally scored 2 goals for the other team, so pump your brakes there, Bieksa. Is there something, though, to, like, are we overstating he's been on the ice for 20 even strength against, 23 in all situations?
If plus minus is a tricky stat because it's not the player that's on the ice. It may not be his fault. With Darnell Nurse, yes, he needs to defend better. But one of the things with Darnell Nurse, his strengths is his ability to move puck and jump up in the play. And I think now he's focused, even in the last game, I thought he was better defensively than he had been in games 2 and 3. But yeah, I think it was overstated, but no, it is a difference. Darnell Nurse has to be dominating in the defensive zone. He needs to be more physical. He's got to pin Dallas Stars to the wall, and he's got to forget jumping into the play until they get the puck out of the zone. And I think that's another thing that Darnell sometimes gets focused on, is he's thinking offense before the puck's out of the zone. So he needs to be better. he needs to be one of their best defenders. Like Darnell Nurse eats those kind of minutes that he's got to be able to provide both things, but I'm not giving him a free pass. When you give up those kind of the opportunities around your net, you need to be stronger on your stick. You need to be under stick. You need to be more physical. He's a big guy that needs to be more physical on the smaller forwards of the Dallas Stars. He needs to be better defensively. So not a free pass, but yeah, his minuses don't necessarily reflect what he's been to the Oilers in this series.
I just think he's been too good a player in his career for us to do that.
For sure.
One of the more important players on this roster is underperforming. Relax, guys.
We're not asking him to
they
be
want him to they want and probably need him to be more like himself.
Yeah, and you're not asking him to be a Norris guy. You're just asking him to not be like the biggest liability on the ice outside of his partner, and he hasn't been that. So I want to switch gears to the other conference, and we're talking about a guy who is underperformed on the blue line. Let's talk about a guy who has kind of emerged as maybe one of the best defensemen in the entire NHL in Gus Forsling. Like, where would you rank Gus Forsling amongst the league's best defensemen at this point?
We talk a lot about the Carolina defense, the Carolina Hurricanes with Slavin and the guys they have defending there. Forsling has been elite. Like the one thing about Gus Forsling is it's not just the offensive side. He gets the big goal last night by a juicy backhand. That was sick, by the way. Mm-hmm. Phenomenal offensively. He can get the puck through the neutral zone quickly. He can jump in the rush quickly. His ability to defend and get back into the plays and his good stick and break up 2-on-1s, he's phenomenal. He plays both sides of the puck, and you're right. He is the best defenseman left right now. He is. And I think Schneider's done some good things for the New York Rangers, and I think that goes a little bit unnoticed. Forsling is phenomenal. And to think the Carolina Hurricanes waived him, oh boy, howdy. Whoops.
Yeah, like that's the craziest thing to
me.
The
biggest fuck up. The team that
always gets
defensemen.
the defenseman.
Yes.
The team that loves defensemen more than any other team in the entire NHL looked at that guy and was like, nah, we're good, thanks.
We had Sarah Sivian on the other day, and she obviously covered the Hurricanes for a long time, and I was like, how did that happen?
Like, it happened with the Blackhawks, and you can look at that and be like, yeah, well, they're fucking idiots a lot of the time. Yeah. Like, but the Carolina Hurricanes, it's so good at evaluating defensemen and valuing defensemen. Cast that guy off. Crazy. I'm glad you mentioned the offensive part of his game, because I think largely he's been profiled as an incredible defensive defenseman for good reason. But we've seen in these playoffs, he scored 4 goals in the playoffs. And that tops his entire he's got 4 goals in 16 games, and previously had 3 goals in like 37 of his previous playoff games. Is this just a case of a guy needing to shoot more and having a little bit more confidence behind his offensive game, or has that developed?
It's a couple of things. One, I think it has developed his confidence, but I do think he's a defenseman that thinks defense first, and he thinks the responsible side of the puck first. And when you think that side first, you don't always take that opportunity to join the rush. You don't always come in off of the blue line. You think, okay, if I don't have the support, I'm going to stay here. Where you have some offensive defensemen don't give a shit. Like, I'm going. I don't care. I'm not going to play the other way. I think that's his cerebral part of the game allows him to see this as a spot I better not go. And even last night when he scores the goal, which is phenomenal goal, but you watch him through the neutral zone and him getting out of his own zone, his ability to use his feet to get out of trouble is amazing. Even if it doesn't translate into a scoring opportunity in the other direction, it does allow their team to not defend as much. So I don't know the last time I've seen him make a mistake. And that's incredibly rare for a defenseman to go, gosh, you've been so solid on all 3 zones. You feel good when he's on the ice. I don't know if Florida can put him out in any situation, and you're going to be okay. And I think that's what's been a problem for the New York Rangers. Their top guys haven't been top guys because they just aren't getting opportunities anywhere close to the blue paint.
What do you think his ceiling is? Like, could you see him being a guy that gets a good amount of Norris votes?
I think he can now. I don't think he could have before. It's one of those, if you play for Pittsburgh, New York, Boston, Toronto, you're gonna win because everybody sees you every weekend. People are seeing him now, and people I think are now putting him on their list that, God, this kid can play, and I think that's definitely going to help him. It'll be Norris talk next year for sure, if he continues to play like this, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he's seemed like the biggest at the beginning of the playoffs. We talked about like who's going to be the guy that I always use the example of 2011. Patrice Bergeron won a million Selkies because the Bruins made a deep playoff run, and people were like, "Oh, Patrice Bergeron's a really good defensive player," and everyone was like, "Did you not know that?" And then he was kind of in the club.
People were talking about Heiskanen being that guy this year, but I think
that
more
is true.
so it's Forsling.
I was just gonna say, I feel like very bad very bad playoffs from Miro Heiskanen because this was supposed to be him.
And
now
who said
Forsling's doing it.
Not,
Was
not
it you
very
that said
bad,
with
but he
us?
hasn't had the best series.
Was it you that said with us if the Stars won this round that Miro Heiskanen was going to win the Norris next year? Somebody said that with us, or maybe
Wasn't
Sean
me,
said
but
it, or I said it, or something.
I think
Sean
Elliot
sounds like he was-
Friedman said it on 32 Thoughts that like if
That's
Heiskanen,
right.
Yes,
if
that's right.
Heiskanen shuts down Connor McDavid in the series, he's going to get a ton of Norris consideration next year.
But isn't that the matchup you want? Forsling and McDavid? Like I do now. I didn't before, but Forsling, McDavid, yes, bring it. Because Forsling can skate. One thing McDavid can out skate, and that's the other thing Dallas defense are doing. They're backing up because they have to. Like there's so much room to the neutral zone because if you have a tight gap, you're done. So let's see Forsling handle McDavid. I can't wait. Well, I can't.
If that happens, do you do Draisaitl on the first line with McDavid? Because at least give an opportunity for McDavid to make it more McDavid Ekblad than McDavid Forsling.
I don't know. I think it depends on what your home or road, who gets your last changes. I like when they split them up. I think it gives you a 1-2 punch that you can't protect everybody all the time. The one thing with Florida though, their defense are so deep. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who I'm a huge fan of Oliver Ekman-Larsson, he's had a great series because he's not the guy anymore. He's a lower pair guy that just goes out and plays. And I think their whole top six, they're the best defense left in the series.
Why do you think Pete calls it sogless behavior? You've cut games and studied games for a million years. Have you ever seen such a long stretch where entire games are having 8-10 minute stretches of teams not getting any pucks on net?
Shots. Yeah, it's insane right now. This whole playoffs has been like that. You look up at the clock and go, oh my God, they haven't had a scoring chance. I do believe it's because the defending has become so much better. I think teams are so much more structured in how they're going to defend that they limit that time and space for the opponents. And you're seeing teams right now playing much smarter, especially in these tight games. You're not seeing teams taking those offensive chances. And we talked about de-pinching or jumping in on the play. When you get those rallies going back and forth, you don't see that anymore. But guys are playing way too smart. No one wants to be the guy making that mistake, so they don't make mistakes. And when you don't make mistakes, you don't get scoring chances and you don't get penalties. And I think you're seeing a lot of that right now. Everybody is defending so tight. And it's not just Florida and Edmonton. I mean, all four teams are doing that. They're defending extremely well and they're not giving up opportunities. And some might say it might be a little boring when you go those long stretches, but I think it's really good hockey when you could defend these top players to that ability for that long. It is really fun to watch until you get sitting in the penalty box, and then you've got to see some of these power plays pick it up. Florida power play has not been great, although they've been better in this series. Rangers power play has been non-existent, and Dallas and Edmonton don't have a power play goal between them in this series. So I think if you're going to win the cup this year, your power play is going to have to get going.
A question from the chat. Do you have any thoughts or maybe even a pick on the Stanley Cup? Are you invested in that at all?
I'm not. I heard you talking about it. I wish I did. I go with whoever DJ picks. It is amazing. It is amazing because I'm old and I feel it. But you know how much hockey I watch? Like it's just like I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I've been watching hockey since. As soon as we get off, I'm going to watch hockey again. And there's only 4 teams playing. Like I don't wait. Forward me the pup thing. I'll have a pick for next week. Is there a beagle?
You know what's crazy though? Like
is there a beagle? I'll pick a beagle. I like beagles.
There is. I don't know if is Jay Beagle going on. If they don't do Jay Beagle, then they'd be crazy.
Oh, Jay Beagle.
But yeah, like my excuse for everything with any sort of social commitment. Not that I have many out there, but I'm just watching hockey every night. I'm watching. All I'm doing is watching hockey, and I'm taking notes and I'm learning and I'm seeing it the way that I see it. But I feel like are you watching each game like 400 times, or are you just good like that?
I got to watch it at least twice. Like you have to, because when you watch it the first time, you get the highlights, you get the, oh yeah, that guy did that. But then you have to watch it again because you go, oh, and then what you do, it's funny. Because I tell you, Pete took a lot of heat for showing me a picture of his socks. And who gives a shit, by the way, Pete? No offense.
No, it was bad behavior. You can't do it. It was going to ruffle a lot of feathers.
Is it? Like you don't have to, if you're wearing pants.
No, live and let live.
But I was thoroughly impressed that the notebook with the pen was right there. Like note taking. I don't take notes during the game. That's impressive. Like you guys both. Look at you guys. Like that's unbelievable preparation.
I
used to do that.
I started doing it again this playoffs because like when there were 2, 3, 4 games a night, it would just all fucking blend together. And then the next morning I'd show up here and I'd be like, what the fuck happened last night? So I've had to get back into the habit of just taking notes and jotting down just,
just like
cursory things that remind me of things that I want to talk about, which brings me to a point.
Yes, sorry.
A guy that I wanted to mention was Anton Lundell, because I think one of the most important things that you can have as a true Stanley Cup contender is a good third line center. And he didn't have the game-winning goal because of that fucking garbage time goal with the skater pulled last night, but essentially had the game-winning goal. He's emerged to me as a guy that is extremely important to the makeup of that team. Like, he's getting most of his minutes against the Panarin line, which Panarin has not been very good in this series. Call me. Am I crazy by like profiling him as like an Anthony Cirelli plus type for this Florida team?
Yeah, I think he's incredibly important. And I think when you look through the middle of the ice on all of these teams, you have to have that or you're not successful. You need Draisaitl and you need McDavid. You need those top end guys. You need Barkov, Kachuk. But a guy like Lundell, he does the little things right. And to your point, defends extremely well. He's quick on pucks. He drives the net really well when they're on the offensive side of the puck, and you need those little things again, because you know you're going to throw out Barkov on the next shift, and for Hagee, you're going to get that, but you've got to be able to get out at least even when you're playing your bottom six forwards, and you put him on the ice, you just feel safe. He's a jack of all trades, Swiss Army knife kind of guy that could provide a little bit of everything for your team. So if you're going to win, you go back to Kadri for the Colorado Avalanche, where you needed a guy lower in the lineup that did the things right. He was one of the guys that really propelled that team to a Stanley Cup. And I think this is the guy that's going to go unnoticed and probably an unsung hero of this team, that's just going to do the little things right to allow them, the big stars, the top six, to continue to put the puck in the net. And he's going to be the guy that holds the fort down. Yeah, he's been exceptional in this series. And he's a guy, if you haven't watched him, keep your eye on how well and how tight his gaps are and how good his stick is and how well he is defensively. But when the puck gets on their stick, how well he gets to the net and distributes the puck too. He's been absolutely elite.
What do you think the Rangers need to do with their lineup? Like, because I think that it's hit a point where they need to do something. They're just not getting enough. I know Mika and Chris Kreider finally kind of broke through, but their big guys are just not making enough noise. Is that a case of, just Florida's forechecking is too good to overcome? Or like, what would you do with the lineup to free some of those guys up?
Well, the one of the guy, it's funny, like they put Hedel up there on the top line and they finally get and break through. I like their lines. Like, you look at Lafreniere with 16 and 10, the Panarin Trocheck line's a very, very good line. I don't know if you can adjust the lines. I think you need to adjust the way they're playing. And I think for me, it's they're trying so hard. This is a team that's been able to get north to south, through from their breakout to the other end of the ice throughout the regular season with ease. They've made these long passes. They've been able to go east to west and get up the ice really quickly, and they can't do that against Florida. And I don't know if they've been able to just go, hey, you know what? We've got to get the puck off the glass and win those races in the neutral zone and try to get the puck out of our defensive zone first and then get the play out to the neutral zone. Again, teams with really high skilled forwards don't want to play that way. They want to carry the puck through the neutral zone. They want to be the guy that makes the nice play at the blue line, the drop pass. They can't do that right now. So what you have to do is you got to revert to simple hockey. And simple hockey is off the glass and out, make the foot races with the defense on the other way. And one of the things with Florida's defense, and we talked about how mobile they are and how good they are, but one of the things they do is they hold the blue line tight. You watch Ekblad at that blue line. He's not leaving early. So you get the puck behind him, and then you make that race. Get Panarin and Ekblad going through the neutral zone. I'd like to see Rangers simplify, and I want to see it in the offensive side too, because they can't do those great rushes, those 3-on-2 plays. They haven't been there through game 4 of the series. So or through 5 now. If you can't do that, you need to dump the puck and go get it. I don't know if they've got the mentality to play that way right now. They need to simplify and make this game easier on themselves, because last game was their worst game for getting pucks out of their zone. Their turnovers in the defensive zone last night were horrific. They have to simplify and get pucks out of the zone first.
Lastly, we'll ask you about that morning skate in Dallas right now. So Dallas has an optional skate. Tough to glean what's going on there. Sam Carrick going into the lineup for Derek Ryan in Edmonton. Does that make any impression on you?
Right now it's all about who's got the freshest body. The one thing in the playoffs, especially on these day off, you don't know what guys are going through in the locker room. You've seen the grinds there. I think you're probably looking at a pair of healthy legs going in. It doesn't I like Carrick. I think he's got a little bit of grit that I think they're going to need in Dallas tomorrow. I'm not reading too much, and I don't think that's a huge difference for me. Ryan for Carrick isn't a game changer like you saw with like when they put Corey Perry and McLeod in. That's a huge change. Like that's a huge change in their
Plus,
lineup.
at this point, you cannot question anything that Chris Knobloch does. So that guy has his finger on the pulse. That guy has his finger underneath the skin, physically touching the pulse.
The "he's a genius" chant is starting to, like, I read that yesterday. Like, is he a hockey genius? I'm like, buddy, you look down your bench and you see McDavid and Draisaitl and go, okay, you two guys go. Like, we could do that.
Hey,
like,
what?
Okay,
No
okay,
way.
okay, Brian Burke. do you guys remember when somebody, I think it must have been in Toronto, someone was like, do you think that maybe you need to follow the Pittsburgh model of building a team? And he was like, being given Sidney Crosby? Yeah, I'd like to follow that fucking model.
Yeah, I think Knobloch's a good coach, but you know what he does? You know what he's been able to do? He's been able to tap and make Connor McDavid happy. And if you make your better players happy, I think that goes an incredibly long way. I think he's a good players coach. I think he gets the relationships really well. And when you talk about those lineup changes and having a pulse, that's a guy that knows what's going on inside his locker room. And I think that's important, especially in 2024, that you know your team, meaning you've got relationships. You're a personable guy. You're a nice guy. And I will talk about the coaching carousel at some other time. Actually, Lee and I are talking about it today because everybody seems to think there's some great moves coming. I'm not so sure because I think you have to evolve as a coach, and that's one thing Knobloch has done. He does create those relationships, and I do think that that's what's been able to help his better players feel more comfortable and be able to show what they're doing.
He scratched Vinny Desharnais on his birthday. It's not nice behavior.
It's not nice, but it worked.
I'll tell a story someday. I was in a coach's room once, and this is the true story, where a kid came in. He was a young kid in the league, but pretty well-known kid, and he came into the head coach who scratched him off the lineup. We put the lineup up on this morning skate. He came in literally crying. Like he's an adult. You're a 20-some-year-old
Derek
kid. Crying because grandma was there. Grandma was at the game crying in the locker room. My grandma's here. And we all looked at the head coach going, okay, are you going to be the tough guy? What are you going to do? And the kid played that night. They made a late minute change.
It's bad behavior.
I don't know if I like the behavior.
Yeah, bad behavior.
So you just push the coach around, huh?
Yep.
Tough
push
scene.
the coach around. My grandma's here.
Hey, watch this. Oh, my grandma.
Respect your elders.
My grandma's
Do it for the grandma.
We all silly like the mayor.